Today we're going to solve little percent problems. Now there's different ways to do this. I'm just going to go over one way, and it's solving percent problems by the proportion method. So, if you do it by the proportion method, they're actually pretty easy. We do have to know a formula. We have to know percent over 100 equals amount over base. We got to remember that. An easy way to remember, we know percent means divide by 100, so I'm going to remember it's percent over 100. On my other side, an easy way to remember what goes on top. Base goes on the bottom, so A goes above B. It's amount over base. Then, so I know percent over 100 equals amount over base. Then I got to know one thing about the base, and this is the key. Base follows the words percent of. And then if I've got that, everything should be easy. All right, so we're going to do 3 samples with 3 different types. The first one, if it says, what is 15% of 50? Yes, I know some of you know I could change percent to a decimal and make it 0.15 times 50. But I'm going to do them all the same, so hopefully when we do the hard ones, it becomes easy. If I use the proportion method, I write my formula down. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. So now I just got to fill in my 4 spots, and if you remember how to solve proportions, you'll be fine. First thing you ask is, do I have a percent? I want to fill this in. Yes. If I use the proportion method, I don't have to worry about moving decimal points. So it's just going to be 15. Whatever my number is, it is. I have 15 over 100 equals amount over base. I look for the base next. Either I have it or I don't. So, after the words percent of, right after percent of, I have 50. So 50 is my base. That's my x. Cross products. I get 100x equals 15 times 50. So now you're allowed to use a calculator. So we'll just do this. So I got 15 times 50. I get 750. Divide by 100. So now I have choice. I could either take my 750, move it 2 places. That's how I divide by 100 and get 7.5. Or, if you want, I can divide by 100. Knock off pairs of zeros, divide by 10. I move that decimal. But I'm going to get 7.5. All right, let's try the next one. I write my formula down. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. Do I have a percent? Yes. So it's going to be 85 over 100. Then I look for my base. Base follows the words percent of. So, is 78.2 my base? It says 85% after percent of. If you notice, it says what number? I stop at the verb. So, after percent of, it says what number? That's what I don't know. So now my x is my base. My 78.2 goes here. Cross products. I get 85x equals. An easy way to multiply by 100 is move my decimal 2. So I get 7820. Divided by 85. So now I have 7820 divided by 85. I get 92. Move it over here. So my answer is 92. All right, last one. 80 is what percent of 50? Do I have a percent? No. So this time, I'm looking for the percent. I can't put 80 over 100. It says what percent? So it's got to be x over 100. Base is the next thing I look for. Base follows the words percent of. After percent of, it says 50. My 50's here, my 80's here. My cross products. I could knock off pairs of zeros, but I'll have 50x equals 80 times 100 is 80, add 2 zeros. Divide by 50. X equals, knock off pairs of zeros. So I have 800 divided by 5. So I'm going to get 160. So it's 160%. We'll do another one. So you can see what happens is your x moves around. I've got 16 is what percent of 10. First thing I do is write my formula down. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. Do I have a percent? Is 16 the percent? No. It says 16 is what percent? So again, it's worded different. I don't know the percent. So it's going to be x over 100. I look for the base next. Base follows percent of. Right after percent of, 10 is my base. My 16 goes here. Its proportion, I can multiply my cross products. 10 times x is 10x. 16 times 100 is 1600. Divide by 10. Knock off pairs of zeros. So I get 160. I'm looking for percent, so it's 160%. Right? Once you know the formula, they all should be easy. All right, this has decimals. I'm going to do the same thing. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. That's my formula. Do I have a percent? Yes. So now, if I use the proportion method, I don't move the decimals. So whatever's in front of the percent sign goes here, because dividing by 100 takes care of that. So I have 0.4 over 100. I look for my base. Base follows percent of. Here's my percent of. It says what? That's what I don't know. So that means my base has to be x. My 0.1 or my 1/10 goes here. This is the one people get wrong the most. Then I just do my thing. I get 0.4x equals. I have to multiply 0.1 times 100. Now you're going to use a calculator, but to multiply by 100, all I have to do is move my decimal 2 places to the right. So 1 out of 0, I'm going to get 10. I got to divide by 0.4. So 10 divided by 0.4. X is going to be 25. So 0.4% of 25 is 0.1. But if you know the formula, hopefully they're all easy. All right, we'll do another one. 5% of 100 is what? I have percent over 100 equals amount over base. Do I have a percent? Yes. So I have 5 over 100. Base follows percent of. So do I have anything after percent of? 100. That's my base. This time my x is here. My cross products. I have 100x equals 500. Divided by 100. Or I could just move it 2. But x is going to be 5. Just 2 more. 22% of what is 11? So I start with my formula. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. So that you have to memorize. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. Do I have a percent? Yes. So it's going to be 22 divided by 100. Then do I have a base? 22% of what is 11? So is 11 my base? No. After percent of, it says what? That's my unknown, my question. So my x goes here, my 11 goes here. And this is the one people get wrong all the time. Then I just do my thing, my cross products. 22x equals 11 times 100 is 1100. Then I just divide by 22. So x is going to be 50. All right, one more. 40% of what is 15? I write my formula down. Percent over 100 equals amount over base. Do I have a percent? Yes. So it's 40 over 100. Do I have a base? After percent of, again it says what? My x goes here, my 15 goes here. My cross products. 40x equals 1500. Divide by 40. Knock off pairs of zeros. 4 into 150 is going to be 37.5.